Hello and welcome to Books in Review. I'm Susan Petty. Today we're talking to Phil Vinson, photographer extraordinaire, and I guess called the author of Fort Worth, A Personal View, this beautiful photography book recently published by TCU Press, of whom I'm the editor. And Phil and I are going to have a mutual admiration society here because we had such fun working together. Right. Welcome, Phil. I'm so glad to have you.
Glad to be here, Susan.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Fort Worth.
In Fort Worth.
We moved to Fort Worth when I was 7 years old from West Texas, and I've been here ever since.
And when did you start taking pictures?
When I was about 12. My dad was a photographer, and he knew a lot about it, and I started asking questions. And, you know, I had a little Brownie, Kodak Brownie camera that I started fooling around with and started asking him questions. And he gave me a darkroom kit for my birthday when I was 13, so I could develop my own pictures and make my own prints and that sort of thing. And it just caught fire, and I just became obsessed with it in junior high school. And from then on, I was hooked, and I took pictures all the time.
What kind of a kid were you? Were you a solitary kid?
Not
Were
really.
You,
probably pretty average. I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of fun, but I guess I'm sort of an introvert, and there was kind of that aspect of me that liked to focus on inner things, and photography sort of filled that need.
Sort of spoke to that.
Yeah.
Well, what kinds of things interested you visually back when you were first starting?
Well, growing up in Fort Worth, there were all these things that just fascinated me. We lived for a while near the Mrs. Baird's Bakery on Summit Street. And you could smell the aroma of that baking bread all the time. And they always had a Santa Claus at Christmas every year, and a big sleigh out in front, and you could go visit Santa Claus. And we lived literally across the street from Thistle Hill. There was a street that runs alongside Thistle Hill called 7th Avenue.
Right.
And we lived in a garage apartment on 7th Avenue, and Thistle Hill was right across the street from us, right across 7th Avenue at Pennsylvania. And, you know, that was like a big castle or something. It was just a very interesting old building. And, of course, there were so many things in Fort Worth that were visually interesting, like the Tarrant County Courthouse and the T&P Railroad Station. We used to ride the train from Fort Worth back to West Texas from the T&P station, and that place, and all that Art Deco architecture in the thing just fascinated me. And so when I got older, I remembered a lot of those things from my childhood and started taking pictures of them.
Now, did you have some of those original photographs of some of the things that are in this?
No, none of those pictures goes back that early.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I know none of these do, but I wondered if you had any of your prints from when you were
very
a child.
Young. Yeah, a few, yeah, but they're not very good. I mean, I was just point and shoot, you know.
That's how you learn.
Yeah, and from probably the age of 13 on, I've got a lot of pictures that I took in junior high and high school. I was the photographer for the school newspaper.
You are.
And in both junior high and high school. And then I had a teacher in high school who said, "What do you want to take pictures for? You can write." And so I got sidetracked into journalism and focused on writing for a long time, but eventually I got back to photography.
Back to photography. Well, that was going to be my next question. What did you do when you grew up? You've kind of had a three-pronged career.
I really have. The three parts of that career have been reporter, editor, four, I guess, actually, when you get right down to it. I was a reporter and editor for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram.
And not a photographer?
Well, I did, yes. When I was a reporter, I carried a camera. And my editors figured out that I could take pictures, and so they said, carry your camera and take pictures of anything that we can't get a photographer to.
Well, so, it's two people in one.
They used to do that more in those days than they do now. I was a reporter/photographer, and I took a lot of pictures as a reporter, along with the stories I wrote. And then I got into editing, and once I got into editing, I kind of got away from photography for a number of years. And then
even as a hobby?
Yeah, well, for 5 or 6 years, I just had little or nothing to do with photography, even as a hobby. But when my wife and I got married, I started thinking back on how much I enjoyed photography, and I got a new camera and started shooting as a hobby again. And eventually, I got so interested in it that I left the newspaper and opened my own photography business.
And that was a commercial photography
business? As a
business.
commercial photographer, yes.
And what kind of work do you do as a commercial photographer?
Well, I'm
weddings and
yeah.
Does one do as a commercial
little bit of
photographer?
everything. You name it, I probably took pictures of it, from weddings to portraits to Little League baseball players to dance recitals to advertising shots and public relations shots. And
how does that jive with having an artistic vision? Because you have a very distinct artistic vision.
Well,
and I wonder how that sort of thing works.
Well, the commercial photography was pretty confining. You know, there's not much creativity involved in a lot of it. Now, some of it there is, but for the most part, it's pretty routine, and you just, you know, your goal is to take a good, sharp, clear picture that people will appreciate and
make everybody look good.
Right, like the dance recitals.
That's hard. I mean, that's an art in its own right. Is taking pictures of dance.
Yeah, it went on for years, and I had probably at one time about 5 dance schools that I photographed. Who
did you? Because I used to dance with Diane West.
Yeah, I didn't know.
You didn't know her. Okay,
no.
Good. Because I have some pretty wonderful pictures of me dancing, and I wonder if maybe that would have been kind of interesting if we'd come across each other in that regard. Sorry.
I started the dance pictures in the 70s and did it up until last year. The last dance teacher I shot for retired finally, and so
I'd love to see some of your dance pictures.
Well, they're pretty, they're posed pictures. They're not.
They're not action shots.
No.
Okay.
The teacher would set up all the students, and the teacher would give them a pose. What to do with their hands and so forth, and it was pretty routine, pretty, unchallenging. If you could focus the camera and trip the shutter, you were pretty well off. But anyway, I did that sort of thing for 25 years, and the creative part, I guess that came in my spare time. I got interested in, I think the Amon Carter Museum probably inspired me as much as anything, because they have such a great photography collection.
They have one of the premier collections in the nation.
In the nation, yes, they do. And I would go out there and look at photographs by the masters, Edward Weston and Ansel Adams, and some of the Great Depression photographers like Walker Evans and some of these people. And, I started going out on weekends, driving around Fort Worth and the vicinity, just to try to develop that creative side. And
this is while you were in your commercial photography business.
Right. While I was a commercial photographer, this is what I did for fun in my spare time. And so, I got a little better all the time, and as time went on, I built up quite a collection of photographs, and finally showed them to a gallery owner out on Camp Bowie named Perry Coldwell, and he was pretty excited about them, and so he gave me a show, and I've been involved in some other gallery shows, and then I sort of I got all my pictures together, and there's a gallery in Dallas that's a very, very famous gallery, or a very well-established gallery.